You're a wealthy European in the 19th century and you want perfect teeth. But dentistry barely exists and tooth decay just seems inevitable. So, what would you do for a perfect smile? Well, you start plucking out the teeth from dead soldiers and you start making dentures out of real human teeth. Trust me, I am just as disgusted as you are, and so were the scientists at the time. But industrial chemistry changed the game. Researchers began discovering why some communities had stronger teeth than others. They found out that the answer was not simply discipline, wealth, or luck, it was hidden in the periodic table. One element became the center of attention: fluoride. Researchers discovered that naturally occurring fluoride in water could strengthen tooth enamel and make teeth more resistant to decay. What was next? Well, water fluoridification programs and the simple addition of fluoride to toothpaste reduced cavities for millions of people around the world. But the lesson here is so much bigger than teeth. Because sometimes the answer to a problem is right in front of you. You don't have to accept things just the way they are, but you need to be curious enough for a better answer. In my opinion, a lot of ideas weren't rejected because they were wrong. Oftentimes, they're rejected because they're coming from the wrong person. Now, for centuries, sailors couldn't determine longitudes. So the government provided huge prizes to whoever could. A clockmaker, John Harrison, did just that. But once again, he was met with so much prejudice against him. Because why would expert sailors listen to a clockmaker? Am I right? Once again, the idea was right, and the evidence was strong, but it seemed to have come from the wrong person. But it's ordinary people like you, me, and the clockmaker who are bound to change the world. All you need is enough confidence to face any embarrassment that may come your way. Now, human progress has never been linear. It's more of a web of unrelated events. I mean, seriously, who would have thought that the Black Death could have stimulated the invention of the printing press? So many people died in Europe at the time that there was a clothing surplus. The residents then decided to turn these rags into cheap paper. And that same cheap paper created a huge demand for books. Once again, a tiny cause with a massive consequence. This brings me to my next point, and it's called the trigger effect. As years have gone by, the things that we take for granted have multiplied. I mean, just try crossing the road for once. Whether a car knocks you down or not depends on the person who fitted the brakes of the car. Just one tiny error in this network will be seen like ripples on a pond, just multiplying one after the other. The people walking past you, cars passing by, and phones buzzing in your pocket. It's all part of a chain reaction. Because history was never made from grand moments. It was made from ideas that seem insignificant or even ridiculous at the time. The problem is, we humans love simple stories. We say that the internet was created, the Industrial Revolution happened, and modern medicine improved. But that's not how history works. The world changes when individuals translate ideas into actions. The real question I raise is, why are so many of these ideas rejected if they're so valuable? Well, new ideas naturally threaten old beliefs. People prefer certainty and comfort. Once an idea succeeds, it's really easy for me and you to sit here and say, well, why didn't people just accept this sooner? But before success, it's uncertainty that prevails. Because progress was never just about intelligence. It was about willingness. Without it, even the best ideas remain trapped on paper. During the Napoleonic Wars, Britain was producing some of the finest graphite in the world. Now, I agree, making great pencils seems trivial, but for engineers, this was a game changer. Why? Because better pencils meant improvement in precision manufacturing. Better precision manufacturing meant better machinery. Better machinery led to industry development, and that same industry development is what led to the Industrial Revolution. This next story that I'm about to share is, to me, nothing short of a superhero story. Because the only catch here is that the superhero isn't even a human, it's a phone. After the Cuban Missile Wars, both superpowers, USA and Russia, realized something terrifying. Nuclear missiles could land within minutes, but messages between diplomats would take hours. Consequently, they created the Moscow-Washington hotline in 1963. But this wasn't just a phone. It was a secure teletype system which allowed leaders to communicate, whether that was in the Six-Day War or the Yom Kippur War. And it really goes to show that oftentimes the best inventions during wars aren't even weapons. They're often just better ways of communication. At this point, you're probably thinking, Sachi, these are just famous stories about famous people. How can I ever relate to these? But they're not, because ideas alone don't change the world. People do. A book cannot change the world, but the reader can. This speech might not change the world, but the listeners definitely can. Because the world changes when individuals take actions. The people who change the world aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented ones in the room. Oftentimes, they're simply the ones who are willing to act when others hesitate. I mean, let's be honest, most of us will never lead world nations or mentioned in history books or be famous authors. But that doesn't mean that we can't change the world, because people who start change rarely know how they will end. We live in an era where ideas travel faster than the speed of light. But this comes with so many risks, because ideas inherently were never good or bad. Their consequences depend on how people shape them, and only you have the power to choose that. So the next time you think that your ideas are insignificant, or what could you possibly do to change the world as a 16-year-old, or maybe even a 60-year-old, just remember that Europe's obsession with the perfect smile is what led to industrial chemistry. The Black Death stimulated the invention of the printing press, and a simple Moscow-Washington hotline channel might have just saved all of us from another Cold War. In case you're still afraid of failure, remember to soar high and chase something that's worth falling for. Even if you fall, remember to laugh as you do. Because perhaps the real tragedy was never in the fall. The real tragedy is spending your entire life contemplating whether you should even take the risk or not. Because when you pushed your limits, you don't fall with regret. You fall knowing the fact that you actually lived. Luckily for you, dentistry does exist in the 21st century, and fortunately, you don't have to pluck out any teeth to get a perfect smile. But let this story be a reminder as to why behind every healthier smile was someone who was curious enough for a better answer, brave enough to challenge what is accepted, and determined enough to create a better future. Thank you.